Hey guys, Ron here, and don't worry, that new intro is only for this specific style of video, kind of like a refresh, a reboot for the most special series on the channel. If you guys don't already know, almost 6 years ago, back in the summer of 2018, a few months after graduating college with a degree in computer animation, I decided to take 6 months to solidify this channel as a full-time career. And if it didn't work, I would just keep the channel as a side hustle and go on to do 3D animation full-time at some studio in NYC. During that summer, I outputted a bunch of different new series, trying to find one that would stick. And on August 26, 2018, I uploaded creating new Pokemon for my walk. Over my adult years, I became obsessed with going on walks, and I still am. And at the time, my channel had nothing to do with art, but it was definitely part of my identity, a huge part of it. Originally, the video did not do well, but that coming fall, I decided to make a part 2, and that did well enough to warrant a trilogy. And when I released the 3rd episode on a February week I will never forget, that video blew up. Despite the Fakemon in those earlier videos being subpar compared to today's standards, this series changed the trajectory of my entire channel. I felt more fulfilled than I ever had, and my YouTube channel finally became a full-time job, and knock on wood, it still is. I've introduced so many kinds of Fakemon creation series, but slowly the original series where I create Pokemon on my actual walk lost steam and gained less and less views each episode. The last part in the Creating New Pokemon series was released like 2.5 years ago, titled Creating New Pokemon 16, where I turned what I saw at a museum into Pokemon. Ever since this series fizzled out, I constantly get comments asking for a return to form, and simply for me to go on a walk and turn whatever I see into some Fakemon. Not a trip to a museum or a zoo, just a normal walk. Something most of my viewers can just do right now. This series inspired a lot of you guys to touch some grass and create art. The question really is whether or not this is just a tiny minority that wants to see this series revived. So please leave a like and subscribe and share this video with your friends if you want a part 2 for this reboot. It just so happens that over the last few months, I've been developing like crazy serious wrist pain and decided to take a break and not work for an entire week once the weather started getting good. So as spring began, in order for my hands to heal, I got up and went on long, eventful walks for 4 days during my mini vacation and turned what I saw into a few pretty weird Fakemon. Day 1 of my vacation coincided with the solar eclipse that swept the nation. New York City wasn't in the path of totality, but something should be visible. We'll see, but to pass the time until the afternoon eclipse, I thought I would make my way to these abandoned buildings. It's not something you see every day, and it would make for a neat first inspiration. Perhaps a ghost Pokemon that lives in these parts. What if this ghost Pokemon was the one that burnt down these houses? This looks straight from a piece of fiction. If I was a Pokemon trainer, I would go inside and find some Pokemon. But even though I don't live in a fantastical world, I can still feel this sense of escapism to a fictional world by walking around these landmarks while listening to video game music. But let's go back to civilization. I was making my way to the park when I saw these pretty colored boulders and tires, but I immediately left once I realized this was part of a school playground and I was just a random man filming. I walked by a nice view of the New York skyline. I drop everything and make a skyscraper Pokemon, but that weirdly already exists. As I made my way to the park where I can get a nice view of the eclipse, I saw some trees that look like these traditional trees with old man faces, like Ents from Lord of the Rings or the Great Deku Tree from Legend of Zelda. An old man tree that isn't scary like Trevenant would be refreshing. I made it to the park early, and it seems to be getting cloudy. Hopefully that doesn't interfere. A bunch more people begin to arrive, ready to see the eclipse. It's a very nice day outside, so it's a pretty appropriate time to take the family out on this nice astronomical event. As the eclipse draws near, it's actually getting darker and significantly colder. Something's happening. I can feel it. I wonder if everybody else is disappointed or impressed. I'm the only one who didn't bring eclipse glasses because I didn't expect anything major, but I asked the lady next to me if I could borrow hers, and hot dog, with proper glasses you really see the moon obscuring the sun. Now I can finally invade the Fire Nation without worrying. But yeah, it was over in like 10 minutes and I've grown hungry after such excitement. So I'll make my way to a restaurant for some late lunch. On the way, I saw this nifty Oldsmobile car from 1950. We have a car Pokemon, but some kind of steel type with the space age aesthetic would be the bee's knees. I finally arrived at Sally's Southern. This is literally the first time I've ever had Southern fried chicken. I'm a Jewish boy from New York City. I've never had Southern cooking. And damn, was it the best chicken I've ever had in my life. But I'm only gonna allow myself to have this kind of food once a year, because this vacation week was without a doubt the fattest I ever was. I'm not lying, I weighed more than I've ever have that week. So after an eventful walk, I wonder which of the things I saw today I will be turning into a Fakemon. The tree perhaps? The chicken? Oh yeah, that space rock that blocked that star a few minutes ago. I'm gonna create an Eclipse Pokemon. But tons of artists have already made their own Eclipse Pokemon, and usually it just amounts to a fusion of Solrock and Lunatone. I want to make an animal that looks like an Eclipse. So when I thought of an animal with a black face surrounded by fiery fur, I thought of the ruffed lemur. Interesting fact, lemurs are actually named after Roman spirits of the dead, these vengeful ghosts in the night since lemurs are nocturnal. And since the sun represents life and the moon the absence of life, a fire ghost type lemur with a bright mane and white baggy fur that looks like the clothes a Roman citizen would wear makes sense. The white cloak of a Roman would also end up looking like the white rags of a traditional ghost. Oh, and this could be the Pokemon responsible for those abandoned buildings. It lives in burnt down ruins. Originally it was going to be more mischievous looking with a vague face, so it doesn't just look like a straight up lemur, but I still want it to be reminiscent of a lemur, and right now it doesn't. So I made sure to give it a visible snout and a lemur's signature round eyes. The baggy fur does also end up looking like a straitjacket, which makes sense for such a crazy Pokemon. The mane, however, was giving me the most trouble. Eventually it all worked out when I made it look more animalistic. Originally I was going to give it blank eyes as it stared so long into the sun, but without a visible mouth, it was tough understanding what this Pokemon's personality was. So the final version has pupils. Say hello to the Omen Pokemon, Soul Lemur, a ghost fire type with the abilities Flash Fire, Curse Body, and Frisk. Their name comes from solar and lemur. So lemur have been the cause of fires for centuries. They feed on heat, entering houses at night looking for warmth to consume, setting the building ablaze in the process. They are hyper vigilant and rarely get caught. After generations of fearing Soul Lemur, it is now understood that simply providing Soul Lemur with a hug or warm interaction is enough to feed them, preventing hungry Soul Lemur from destroying houses in search of food. The blue fire shiny is mandatory in this house. I'm happy I was able to find a way to merge things I saw today, and making an eclipse Pokemon that isn't simply a literal rock that looks like a moon and sun was very satisfying. Such a wild and frantic looking Pokemon is rare. Day 2 is upon us, and I decided to take it easy after my appointment with the hand doctor to check out why my wrist hurts so much. It's affecting my work, but she says there's nothing wrong with them physically, at least from the x-rays and tests that she's done. Anyways, to cheer me up, I got some banana fudge ice cream, y'all. I'm the type of guy that usually likes vanilla-based ice creams, but banana fudge definitely hits different for me. Very nostalgic. I walked around a very patriotic neighborhood next to the doctor's office. Let me know if it's normal to see this many flags in your home country. And as I finished my ice cream, I sat by this quaint stream. It felt like I was in a slice of life anime. This osprey was doing cool tricks diving for fish when I wasn't filming, but it's definitely a candidate for Pokemonification. Right next to the stream was this pack of turkeys. I've been seeing them everywhere this week. Like they're the #1 animal I've been encountering. That and geese, obviously. But we already made a goose in part 2 of this series many years ago, and then redesigned it last year. But goddamn are these geese yapping. What are they saying? I don't speak Canadian. To finish off the day, I got some nachos, but didn't really know how to scoop up the contents with one hand, so I abandoned that. And then hopped on the train back to where I started my walk. It's always neat taking public transportation during the sunset on a spring evening, and this train is the only line that I know of that is pretty much free, so this costs nothing to ride. But that doesn't mean I'm off the hook. What do I turn into a Pokemon today? I already made a turkey Pokemon based on Mayan temples a while back in my 4 artist series. Check out the full video because the lore of this Pokemon is amazing, and the prompt for this video is wicked. But I never had a Prevo, and everybody wanted me to make a little baby turkey that rode inside the clay back of this, parent. So that's what I'll make. I'm taking inspiration from Mayan children with their little top knots and basically just making a younger version of the evolved form without any temple on its back, but a tail that looks like a little primitive version of its parents' architecture. Its bottom half looks like the loincloth Mayans would wear. Now check out the Dweller Pokemon, Poltec, a ground flying type. From Polt, a baby turkey, and Aztec. Poltec ride within their parents' back, taking a thrill in the battles that Turko Khan face. They learn to fight by watching their parents' every action. When ready to fight themselves, Poltec slices their opponents with their sharp wing and pokes at them with their tail. Their chest feathers protect their vital organs. Please check out 4 artists create Pokemon from the same description number 9 to see this family's entire lore. I'm glad I can finally complete it. Day 3 is kooky. It's the hottest day of the year, summer weather during spring, so I'm going to walk around the bay after working for the first half of the day, so we're beginning with some lunch at this pizza joint, Pier 76. They told me they were super busy, so they didn't have the exact slices I'd hoped for, but pizza is pizza. It's a beautiful looking day though, with giant tires aplenty. This dock is already pretty interesting, lots of old stuff that can be reappropriated, but I'm here for the view. Imagine working here every day. I'd sit right on this bench and eat lunch all the time. I made my way to the fire department's marine base. I guess this is for fires at sea. That's where I came across this oxygen tank. Honestly have no idea how to turn it into a Pokemon, so please, if you're inspired by anything you see on these walks that I'm filming and want to make a Fakemon out of what I showed you, go ahead and send them my way on Twitter. I'll feature the best ones in a part 2 if that happens, but only if this video does well. Throughout the day, I was personally inspired by the erosion that was on full display here. All of these rocks were weathered by the ocean water, perhaps a rock type that has a weird shape due to erosion. I found a spot where 4 different species of birds were munching. The pigeons were peaceful, the bigger goose was commanding the area, the seagulls were fighting, while the crows actually took their food elsewhere to dine in private. Love the difference in personality between species. But goddamn is it hot, so I got some strawberry shortcake Italian ice cream. Ralph's should definitely sponsor me by now. This American factory caught me off guard, and this house was so beautiful I stared at it for like 5 minutes. That's not an exaggeration. But despite the many views today, I think the subject of our third Pokemon will be these many stumps I found throughout my walk. Guys, in episode 1 of this series, I made this Fakemon that I did not finish, based on a stump with mushrooms, so I'm finally gonna finish it. Stouttrot is getting a redesign. The original one was more reptilian, with berries and mushrooms on it, all sorts of stuff, but after making Fakemon for 6 years now, I know I should have a more cohesive concept and pronounced shapes. So I'm gonna make this creature with valuable mushrooms growing on it. It's domesticated for its mushrooms, so I'm making it have a vague shape of a cow with these horn-like mushrooms and hoof roots. Originally I wanted to look dopey and slow, but I gave it more of a refined personality and I leaned into the cow origin. Say hi to the root Pokemon, Stouttrot, a grass and ground type Pokemon, no longer poison, with the abilities Sap Sipper, Effect Spore, and Mycelium Mite. Stouttrot are domesticated for the mushrooms growing on their person. They are used in the highest of culinary crafts, as well as important medicine. Farmers make sure they live long and happy lives in order for Stouttrot to provide them with as much crop as possible. The grass that they munch on ferments and decomposes in their multiple stomach segments. All this nourishment is directly routed to its mushrooms, leaving Stouttrot sluggish but content. I've been thinking of Stouttrot for years, and while it isn't in the form I originally imagined, the concept is much more fleshed out now. And finally, day 4 is upon us, the windiest day ever. Listen to this. Thank God this phone stabilizes the footage. I noticed a seawall being built. Is that something I can use? I really like the implication of these benches that become consumed by the earth over time. These are like modern day ruins. I almost stepped on this ladybug. I think Orbeetle is perfect, so no need for a sequel. But the most eventful part of this video is finally walking somewhere I've never been to. You see, there's this overpass on this street that I've drove under 100 times, but never realized is actually abandoned and leads to nowhere, so we're gonna explore. These kids thought they were in trouble and that I was filming them as evidence of their crimes. It's definitely the kind of place teenagers explore. I wish I knew of this place ages ago. It has a fantastic view of the sunset. Hey look, I can see the gas station where my dad got into a car accident that wrecked his back forever. He was rear-ended while waiting at the red light. Whatever. As I made my way deeper into this abandoned overpass, I discovered these tents and a bunch of collected junk. This is definitely a place homeless people hang out in. And skateboard, I guess. But I think I found what I'm turning into a Pokemon. This graffiti of a satanic aardvark surrounded by pentagrams. Yo, what are these hobos and teenagers doing on this overpass? But before heading home and making our final Pokemon, I grabbed some halal. This thing stayed piping hot for a long time. Lamb over rice. What a day. So since we already have a ghost Pokemon this episode, I'm thinking of making a dark type aardvark instead. I was asking myself if there are any aardvarks in various cultures and lores, and remembered the Egyptian god of deserts, storms, and basically chaos, Set. Nobody knows what this animal is based on, but Aardvark is a top contender. Set is sometimes depicted as good, but in the most famous Egyptian myth, he's the adversary of his brother Osiris, who he cuts up, leading to his nephew Horus avenging his father. So what if I made a dark-type Aardvark that is the rival of our other Egyptian god-inspired Pokemon, Lucario? A counterpart with complementary types. A villain for the heroic Lucario. We're basically making a Lucario if it was a sinister Aardvark. It'll be more angular and sharp, with shapes appropriate for a cartoon villain, so don't expect it to be as handsome as Lucario. Sharp claws to allude to what Set did to I can't say the sentence. Sharp claws that allude to what Set did to Osiris. And instead of a spike on the chest that represents Lucario's heart, its spike will be on the stomach to represent its gluttony and greed. But to include the aspects of the graffiti aardvark that we saw, I added these lines on its snout and gave it these X-shaped pupils. Instead of dreads, this guy has a mohawk. I gotta make it look like a brother to Lucario. It originally had the inverted Lucario colors, but blue didn't fit the guy. Behold, the Chaos Pokemon, Alluvio, a dark ground type whose name comes from the sand deposits in the delta of the Nile. Alluvio are tenacious Pokemon who appear and disappear in a whirlwind of sand. They slice up their foes with a smile. Alluvio have a lifelong rivalry with Lucario, whose aura they can disrupt with their claws. I love the aesthetic of Lucario, so I wouldn't mind a whole group of Lucario-like Pokemon representing the entire Egyptian pantheon. And if you wouldn't mind, please leave a like and subscribe to know if and when a part 2 comes out. Make sure to check out the description for the music I used, the t-shirts I made for you guys, and my Patreon, where you can get cool rewards like seeing my videos days early, which you can also do by clicking the join button and becoming a member. Make sure to follow me on Twitter, where I show sneak peeks of these designs, and make sure to take a crack at my other Fakemon videos. I'll see you guys very soon.